Welcome. My name is Andrew Shanks, and this is the presentation I was supposed to do at Forcelandia in 2024, but unfortunately came down with the stomach bug. So I am here presenting it now online because, hey, it was already done, and I wanted to share the knowledge and be able to spread also the good word of Forcelandia. So we're going to talk today about an admin's guide to Salesforce integrations using the HTTP connector. And always, as we do in presentations for Forcelandia, shout out to the sponsors that made it possible to have Forcelandia. I was super bummed to miss out, but still want to give them all a shout out for making it possible because it is one of my most favorite conferences to go to. Also because it's local, which is super helpful, but yeah, it's great. It has a admin developer route, so it kind of helps me dip my toes more into the developer side of things. All right, so I am your speaker, Andrew Shanks. I'm a MuleSoft ambassador, a lover of automation, and the Portland Salesforce nonprofit user group co-leader. So we just use SNUG as a nice little acronym. Father of two, three if you count my dog, who you might hear either dreaming or barking at something later. And I always follow the mentality of always be curious. So using this opportunity to learn and kind of teach people what I've learned along the way. So if there's something that I say that is incorrect or there's a better way to do it, please leave a comment, send me a message. Love to know, so that way I can also continue to learn. All right, so today we're going to talk about creating name credentials and external credentials. We're going to build a flow with the HTTP connector, and yeah, let's see what happens. As we do with live demos, the process I'm going to use is connecting to FreeWill. So FreeWill is a platform that allows you to create a living will and testament along with other things for free, which is great. Kind of does a step-by-step guide. It's a platform that we use at the Oregon Humane Society because as part of their process, you're able to donate to charities and leave charities in your will. So the Oregon Humane Society is one of those available charities. So nice little plug for them, but also us. And their API is fairly new, so I think it is great to kind of get an exposure, but then also show you, how to make a connection to an API when you might not have otherwise done so. All right, so the story being, our plan giving team would basically do a lot of manual work. So we're going to talk about Claudia here, who is repeating the same task every week while dreaming of the beach. So Claudia is exporting spreadsheets from FreeWill, manually checking them against the records that we have in Salesforce to see if any of the information has changed, and then making manual updates to the records that have changed, but then also creating records that don't currently exist in our Salesforce. But Claudia is dreaming of a better future. And so this is where the HTTP connector comes to the rescue. So we have two bits of automation. We have a scheduled flow that runs daily at 11, and its only job really is to check a box. And when it checks that box, it triggers a second automation to call out to the API and run the HTTP connector in order to get any updates from FreeWill over the last 24 hours. You cannot do this as an immediate path. So immediate path is a no-go in a record triggered flow, but the async path is a-okay. I also learned during testing this that the scheduled flow is also a no-go. So I initially had the entire process in a scheduled flow that ran every day, and instead of checking the box to run a second automation, it would just be a scheduled flow that would run, 11 o'clock every day and just go through and call the API through there. It worked the first day, but every day after that, it failed. So I went back to the method that I know and is worked out quite well for other things as well. So this also eliminates human error on our end. So if we're putting in the wrong information, or misspelling a name or an email or an address, or putting in the wrong donation amount, we can get rid of all of those errors. It's a well-documented process, and so let's begin showing that. So this is a very tiny image. We'll go to slideshow view to make it a little bit bigger, but this is explaining what an API is. So you have your end user with their browser who is saying, even typing into Google, saying, hey, I want something, or I want a bit of information. So that goes to the API. The API checks in with the server, gets that information back, and then passes it to the individual. An example would be if you go to a restaurant, you have a waiter, you make the order with the waiter takes the order to the chef makes the order, gives it back to the waiter brings it from the kitchen and delivers it to the customer. A nice visual that my coworker just sent me earlier today is this example of how an API works. So the API connects with the server. Server's like, I got you. API is like, hey, web app, do you need some information? They're like, yeah. What about mobile app? Yep, we need it. Desktop app? Yep, we need it as well. API is like, hey, send that information. It gives them the data. Then they log out and say bye. There's a fun, beautiful example of how the API works. Behind the scenes, I had to make a few custom fields and custom objects. So on the contact object, I made a free will contact ID, and I changed or updated a lead source option to be free will. For the plan gift, I created that object. It's a custom object that we use at OHS to track these. And then I added on the account record, I created actually a free will anonymous account. So if someone wants their donation to be anonymous, we assign it to the free will anonymous account. So it's just kind of easier tracking. And then I created a URL fields object. And this has the free will updates checkbox. So get free will updates checkbox. When checked, that triggers kind of all the automation, which I will show. And then also I built a subflow for all the fault paths that kind of sends me an email when things happen. All right, so we're going to learn about external credentials, name credentials, permission sets, and how to do HTTP callout in Flow. And there's two ways to do it. You can either do the schema or an example API. So let's start going. So we'll go into my org that I created and go to, let's say if we started out at home, typed in name credentials, because this is always kind of the first place to start. And even though it's a name credential, you need to start with the external credentials. So we are going to create a new one, call it Free Will version 3. Since I've tested this a few times to make sure it's all working. And I always just kind of copy and paste the name, the authentication protocol. We are going to do custom. Hit save. And so now we have our external credential. And this is where we're going to add some additional information. So principal is where we're going to add our API key, which reminds me I need to pull that up. Okay, so this will have our API key in it, and we put it here so that way when we make a custom header, we don't have our credentials exposed. So I'm going to create this new principal. I'm going to name it the same thing of Free Will v3. Secrets number, I just kind of leave it 1. The parameter, I'm going to call it just API key. And then the value is actually my client secret. So thankfully it blurs it out or blurbs it out so you don't see it. And we're going to go ahead and save that. And you can do like username and password. You can do kind of whatever you need and want. It's helpful. And then to create the custom header, there's two things that Freewell needs. The first one being that secret, so your API key. And so this is where we're going to make specific things that are needed. So they expect the header to say x-api-key. And then the value is going to be a formula. And this is because we have the key hidden in the principal that we just made. And so it is curly brackets, exclamation point, credential. And then we use the name of our external credential. So that's Freewell version 3, period. And then what the name of the principal is. So this is API key is the principal that we want to include in this callout. And we'll leave it as sequence number 1. So we'll save that. And then we will create a second one because they need API version. So X API version and is 1. We'll have that as sequence number 2, which is great. So we have our principal, which is hiding our API key, because otherwise we would just have it exposed and have to like paste the value in here, which we don't want to expose that. So we use our little formula here to put our credential, have the name of our external credential, and then the name of the principal or authentication that we want here. I found all of this helpful in this Forcepanda article, where it's header-based API keys, authentication, and external services. So this article will help me figure out how to do that formula, because it was not very intuitive to me at the beginning. So it has the same thing of, setting the permission, and then it gives you the formula for your value of, again, the name of your external credential, and then using the API key inside of that. So that was super helpful for myself learning this process. And that is our external credential. So one thing we need to do before we get too far is we need to create a permission set that includes this external credential, because otherwise you are not able to use it. So we'll go to permission set. We will create a new permission, following suit, calling it Freewell version 3. And then on our permission set, we will go to the external data source access. I don't think that's the right one, actually, sorry. Didn't scroll down far enough. External credential principal access is what we need. We'll edit this and add our Freewell version 3, since that is the one we were working with. Save that, and then manage assignments and assign it to myself, since I'm the one doing this. But you basically want to assign it to anyone who is going to use the API callout. Anyone who needs access to that or to get data from it needs access to use the permission set, or to use the name credential. So now we will go back to the name credentials. And so we already have the external credential. So now we need a name credential to go with it. So we will create that. Freewell version 3. And then the URL I will get. And the URL has the organization ID as part of it. And you don't want to put the full URL. You just want to put basically, the starting part. So I could potentially hide this in a field and just end it at organizations. But I went ahead and just kind of included it in the URL, since it's going to be kind of public anyway. And add the external credential. There's no certificate. But then I turn off this one, and then I allow for formulas in the header and body. The header specifically, since I'm using a formula to pass my credentials, I want to make sure I allow for that. And then I hit save. So now I have my name credential and I have my external credential as well. And I've already set the permission set, which is great. I needed all of those things done before I could kind of go to the next step, which is our flow building process. So if we go to our flows, and this is, I have these tabs available. There's a plugin called Y Salesforce that allows you to add tabs to the setup menu, which is super helpful. So a little plug for that. And I will make a new flow. Start from scratch. We'll make it record triggered. And then, like I said, I have the URL field object that when it is updated to have the get free will updates field marked as true, then I have this automation run. I only want it when it is changed to true, not every time it's saved. And I want to include that asynchronous path since it doesn't work on the scheduled path side, or sorry, the run immediately side. All right, so on my run asynchronous, we'll click on action, and this has changed since the last update. So we will just go straight to create HTTP callout, and then the name, freewheel version 3, and then I get the name credential for my version 3 that I'm doing, which has the correct URL. Hit next. I don't think I can name this version 3 again, but we'll try. It is a get method. Since I'm getting records, I'm getting updates. The URL path is, GIFs. Okay, so it's always helpful to have the API up. So the documentation shows the front of it is api.freewheel.com. And then the back part is the API organizations, and then where I have my ID. And then the part I need to add is the /GIFs. So we'll do that. And then I do want to add a key. So I'm going to add a few query parameters. Let's see. What are my parameters? Okay, so the first one is limit. So limit how many records that would come back. It's a number or integer. And then I want the value, which I will set when I create it. So there's 3 total things that I want. I want the limit, so how many records I'm bringing back, the min update at. So this would be the lowest of when it was last updated. So for my purposes, I want to bring back everything that was updated in the last 24 hours. So I'm using the min updated at, and this is a date time field. And then sort direction, which is going to be a string. So anything, these are basically filters that I am adding when I'm making my API call out to bring back 1,000 records because it otherwise defaults to 10, but the max is 1,000. I'm bringing back the latest, aka the minimum updated app timestamp. So for me, it'll be last 24 hours. I want to bring back anything that was updated in the last 24 hours. And then sort direction, it's not really super important, but just to show you that a string can be added. So we'll hit next. And there's 2 options. One is an example response. The other is, you connect for the schema. So an example response, one thing you can do is use Postman. So Postman is great for testing and using APIs. I do it a lot. Here's an example of basically the same thing where my limit's 1,000, sort direction, and the minimum update at. It's obviously a long time ago. So let's update that field so I don't go that far back. And then I would hit send. And it shows me down here my response. So I would copy and paste this whole thing as my example response. But what's better is if you can just do it and connect to the schema. So that's the route we're going to go. And we are going to include the optional parameters. So limit 1,000, min update at, we're going to put as yesterday at 10:38, and then sort direction descending. And so again, these are all things that I've found in here. So, organization ID is required, the default value is 50, sort direction, it's either ascending or descending, minimum updated at, filter for GIFs where the change has been after this time period. And, you can test everything out here, but basically it shows you what filter criteria you can add to the API callout. So I'm going to do this and hit connect and then hope it works. It did not. FreeWheel version 3.api key does not exist. All right, let's check where that would be wrong. Version 3. Edit. Set API key. Written what I think is the right way. I have it assigned as a permission set. Oh, I know what I did wrong. It's supposed to be, I think, just credential. Or credentials. Yeah, that's showing. Oh, I forgot the $sign. Okay. So we're gonna edit this. It's supposed to be exclamation point $sign. And that's what I missed. So now we know. Again, that would show up correctly in the article. All right, so let's try this again. Perfect. Okay, so now it worked. And what's nice is it auto matches a lot of the fields, but you do have to go through and match the rest that do not have anything. So I always have my second screen where I have the example response API. So this is what I'm looking at on my other screen for an example response. And you can also, you copy and paste that in there if you wanted to, but I'm going to do asset description is a string. And then financial is a string. Yeah, where I messed up last time was these are all supposed to be strings, but you think of time source being a date and time. It is not. They all come over as strings. Strings. Date removed is date time. if all else fails, going with string if you can't find what you're looking for is great. So this is profile deleted at, which actually date time, sorry. String, string, string. Okay, so deceit state is a string. Year is a integer. This is a Boolean. Okay, so if you don't have some of them filled out, it'll tell you. So I would just go ahead and hit save now that I've filled everything out. And now I have my wonderful API key, or my HTTP callout ready to go. And then I would, same thing, include my parameters that I want. So limit 1,000. The minimum update at, I actually make a formula for this. So in order to get the 24 hours ago, so I make a new resource. I don't do it there because for some reason that doesn't give me what I need. So I'll go here to make a formula. And this is a date time. So starting in parentheses. Now minus, this is 1440 is minutes for 24 hours. And then, so I'm basically subtracting now minus 24 hours ago. And then I added parentheses at the end just to kind of make sure it goes in order that I want and group things together correctly. And that works, so that's great. And then I'm going to add that to this key. And then it needs to be lowercase. There we go. So that is kind of the start of this flow in order to get the information. What it actually looks like at the end is this. So this is kind of the full process of how everything goes and works and how we want it to work. So it goes based on this layout that we created. So it runs daily at 9 p.m. A callout is triggered to get free will records using the minimum updated at. And this is a bit outdated, so it actually checks the URL field box. So the first flow I have is this one that runs at 11, not 9. It checks to see if my free will updates is currently true. So this means the last time this process ran, for some reason, maybe it failed. It didn't get to the bottom where it marks the field as false. So I'm updating the field to false so that way I can run the automation that I need to now. And then I will go and mark get free will updates as true. And this is all based on this URL fields record titled triggers. So it has 24 hours ago, which I could have used this field if I wanted to, but here's the get free will checkbox. So it is marking that as true, which then launches this process using the asynchronous process. And it's a very big flow. And it is going through and doing this, so it's easier to kind of look at here. So once I get the call out, I'm basically looping the records. I'm checking for the gift ID first, And so if I find a gift ID, that's the easiest way to update. I just basically update the planned gift that matches my gift ID. Custom field on a custom object. If there's no gift ID match, I search for the person ID, which is the free will person ID or contact ID. If I find the person already exists, then I will create a new planned gift record since I didn't find a gift ID match. If I don't find a person ID match, I check to see if the record is anonymous. If it is, then I basically get the free will account, which I kind of get at the top just so I don't have to do it later. And I use this free will account ID to assign and create the planned gift. So I attach the free will corporate account instead of a contact. If they're not anonymous, I search Salesforce to match first name, last name, and email. If I find a match, I update the person with the free will person ID, and then I create the planned gift. If I don't find it based on email, I search for first name, last name, mailing street, mailing state, and zip code. I do a contains zip code in case it's saved as a 9-digit in our Salesforce, but obviously it's only going to be 5 when someone inputs it in a form. Same thing, if I find a match, I update the person with the free will ID, create a planned gift. If I don't find any contacts, I create the contact and then create the planned gift. And again, that all kind of runs through here. So, if I find a gift, basically using the gift ID, I check to see if I find it. So I do a get records where I'm looking at the current looped record, finding the gift ID. If I found it, I update it, basically adding it to a collection. So that way I only have to do kind of one update at the end instead of, multiple updates basically in every loop. If I don't find that, I look for the person ID and then create a planned gift assignment. So I have a custom variable that is a record for planned gift create. I do a standard object, or SO is the way I learned it. I'm assigning the fields that I want to create, and then at the end, I'm adding it to my planned gift create collection. And then I have a checkbox that says, do I need to create planned gifts? And I do need to create planned gifts, so I mark that as true. But if I don't find the person, then I check to see if it's anonymous. If it is, I use that account ID that I got at the start of this flow, and then, add that to my planned gift create. Look for email match, same thing, update the person, create the planned gift. If I don't find that, I check for address, and then same thing, update contact, create planned gift. If I don't find anything, I create the contact, and then I create the planned gift. So there's a lot of kind of copy and paste from one place to the other. And then when that's done looping, it comes down this way to say, do I need to update a planned gift? So again, that was my checkbox variable. If I do, then I use my record collection of planned gift updates. So that way it's just one update at the end. Same thing, do I have to update contacts? If yes, I use my record collection variable for contact update. And then if I need to create a planned gift, same thing, I'm using my planned gift create collection. And then at the very end, I will update the get free will updates to false. So that way it'll be ready for tomorrow and ready to go. I think that is it. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I did not cover. But again, this was kind of how to start it. And then this was how it looks with all the fault paths and going through the 5 different criteria that we have. Each update or each pink element gets a fault path. And then that is just so, I get an email alert this way. This should actually probably connect back to the loop. So if it does fail, I'll email myself, but then I will also just go back to this loop, so that way it'll just go to the next record instead of stopping and failing altogether. And then with that information I send myself, I'm able to find the contact that failed and kind of go that way. So we are going to test this out. So save and debug. Well, save it as a new one. All right, so we'll mark the box as true. Now I did run immediately. No, that's one reason this is not going to work, because it's not connected to that. So we'll debug again. Pick the run asynchronously path, as we should. Test it out to see how it works. Awesome. So it goes and gets the free will updates. So running by 1,000 has my formula and it's descending. Did I find any elements? So I check my output for this. So output from get well updates. I check the total number to make sure it's greater than 0, which it is, so that is great. And then it runs through to get the account, loop the contacts. I did not find a matching gift ID. I did not find a matching contact ID. Oh, sorry. Yeah, contact ID. It's not anonymous. I did not find a email match. I did not find an address match, because this person does not exist. And so it went through and basically created a contact and created a planned gift, and then went through and looped again. And you'll see, hopefully it shows up. No, that's just my user, so never mind. I guess it's in rollback mode, so it won't show up here. But anywho, it's, where was this? Flow. Okay, so yeah, it runs through all the decisions, and then at the very end, you know, I don't update a planned gift, I don't update a contact, but I do create a planned gift. And it kind of shows the information that is there. So my contact that was created, the estimated amount, free will gift ID, the record type ID, and the status, and all of those things are set. So yeah, it works, which is always great. And now I would just set this live, you know, to run on a daily basis at 11 p.m. Yeah, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, happy to hear them. Hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, have yourself a great day.